Honestly, wasn't even planning on live streaming, but I was sitting on the couch and I was bored. So, of course, I was naturally going to hop into an underdog draft here and figured, okay, if I'm going to be sitting here doing an underdog draft, might as well do it on the live stream just in case you aren't drafting right now in the big board draft contest. Yes, it is very early, but of course, it is best ball. This means no time commitment at all during this season. And Underdog just launched. Yes, you're looking at this correctly. $1 million prize pool draft tournament in February. First place, 200,000. Second place, 500,000. And yes, we maybe have won one or two of these tournaments this past year. Yes, we maybe won 150,000 on Underdog this past season, and I will be annoying you a ton talking about that over and over again this year. But anyway, we are going to hop right in. We are going to be taking, I want to say, a wide receiver at the 107. I don't want to give away too much here. But as I set up this live stream, if you want to get in our next draft, you can find the link in the description. Find it in the comment section. You already know. Sign up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK, and they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100, and you will get our 2023 Dynasty rankings. Checking out the chat right now, Camp says, let's go. I'm already doing one of these drafts as we speak. Okay, well, I'm sad to see that you are not in this draft with us, my friend, but regardless, I am happy to hear that you're having some fun here. And we are going to be in an interesting spot. So usually if you're on the clock at pick 7, Austin Ekeler is going to be the guy sitting at the very top of ADP for you. To be honest with you, I'm not a massive fan of going with Austin Ekeler round 1. If you're looking at Ekeler, same draft class as Mixon, Dalvin, Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette. That 2017 class, he stayed all 4 years in college, so he's actually a little bit older. Austin Ekeler will be 28 years old now. I'm less concerned about the age with Austin Ekeler, given the fact the majority of his value is derived based off of him playing in an elite level offense. And to go along with that, he has the passing down skill set we're looking for, which should translate better than a player like Derrick Henry with old age, at least in my opinion. It would translate better than someone like Dalvin Cook. But regardless, if we're going to be looking at the running back values that we'll be able to find later on in this Underdog draft, I feel a lot more comfortable of just going through and deciding to take a player like Stephon Diggs here, where there are very few question marks. And of course, if you're used to drafting on Underdog, you realize you kind of have to grab these wide receivers early because wide receiver value is going to dry up very quickly. Okay. Thomas says, experienced drafters at the back of this draft. I don't know who these people are, my friend, but I can guarantee you they did not win the Big Dog tournament for 100,000 this past year and the Bulldog 2 tournament at the same time and finished 16th place in Best Ball Mania. So I'm not too worried, But Kennifer says, what should I try to get for Jefferson or Chase in Dynasty? Tannehill's my only quarterback for my startup. I am in trouble. Okay, so if it's a super flex league, if you can trade either Jefferson or Chase for a top 6 quarterback in a 12-team Dynasty league, I'm going to be fine with it. Go try to get Lawrence, Burrow, Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, Herbert. But, I mean, it's not like it's guaranteed that you can. It's just something I would try. But Steven says, sup, Mason, everyone. It's been a bit happy to see you out here, my man. We got Mike out. Cameron says, do you think if nothing crazy happens for the Bengals over the offseason, is Chase the lock for the 103? I actually have Jamar Chase as my 102 right now, at least on Underdog. And I would say even in casual redraft formats, I'm going to be going with Chase at the 102. I mean, I would say if we do see something crazy happen, like possibly T. Higgins gets traded, not saying it's a guarantee, but maybe, I don't know. Then at that point, I think you could actually see Chase move up to 1. Like, hypothetical scenario, and I know we are going down just the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, whatever the hell you want to call it. If T. Higgins were to get traded, we're playing the what-if game. Who would you rather have in fantasy this next season? Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson? Please let me know what you're thinking. Alex says, what's a reasonable range for Bijan Robinson? Feel like his ADP is way too high. Yeah, so he usually goes to the 1-2 turn here. And with Bijan, I'm actually taking him in the mid-second when he falls. That doesn't happen very often. And we're going to go ahead. We're going to be taking Jalen Waddle here. I think once we get confirmation that T. Higgins is 100% going to be a Cincinnati Bengal this next season, I'll be a lot more willing to go T. Higgins here at pick 18 rather than Jalen Waddle. But when there's still maybe the only 5% chance or whatever it may be that Higgins is moved, I'm comfortable going Waddle here instead. And then Let's see. We have Aiden says Chase, Jefferson. Cameron says hot take. I like Chase over Jefferson already. Interesting. Cham says Chase will get doubled and needs volume. I think 9 times out of 10, if you're making an argument against a player in fantasy football, saying, oh, he's the only weapon on his team, he's going to get double teamed, he's not going to be able to. I think 9 times out of 10, that's just noise. You need to be trying to chase volume, chase the player that can get to a 25, 26% team target share, which Chase could easily do. Chase could also, be playing with one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. So I don't know. I'm in on Chase. Okay. Now we have Mahomes, Jalen Hurts going 2021. Not going to lie to you, I have not been taking really any quarterbacks in the second round here. Mahomes, one of my most drafted players last season. We drafted a ton of Jalen Hurts, a ton of Kyler Murray at the 5-6 turn as well. Drafted a lot of Lamar at the 4-5 turn, which obviously didn't work out, but still. Love the elite level quarterbacks over the past few seasons on Underdog. Thought it was very GTO to be going ahead and trying to get 2 of those guys from about rounds 5 through 8. But now looking at the cost associated with those guys and the opportunity cost, I just have a much more difficult time. Zoe the Taco says, do you think quarterbacks early will still be the norm closer to the season? I would say yes. There are a lot of people that are significantly smarter than I am that are advocating, yes, you need to go ahead and you need to take Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes at the beginning of the second round. Like you're seeing, I am personally not really doing it, but I would be surprised if Jalen Hurts in a few months is a consistent pick in the middle of the third. King David, happy to see you out, my friend. I was literally thinking about you the other day. I know that sounds extremely weird. I know. I shouldn't have said it that way. That's just the weirdest thing. Colin says, what's your dream landing spot for Bijan? I'm thinking Miami or Dallas. Miami would be phenomenal. I don't think Miami has a first-round pick, so I don't know how likely it is. But Miami, I believe, doesn't have a single running back under contract this next season. Now Breece Hall goes 28. So let's slide this over. Okay, so far in this draft, we have gone Diggs and Jalen Waddle. But once you have Metcalf, Olave off the board, I think you do have that significant teardrop at the wide receiver position. I don't want to say too much of where we're going to be going, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so Joe Burrow goes 29. I don't know if this team is auto-drafting. This team actually is most likely on auto because they auto-drafted Mahomes. Now they auto-draft Burrow. That is something that we need to keep in mind through the rest of the draft. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take Travis Etienne here. I think you could make an argument for a couple different players with this pick, but I'm going to be going with Etienne. And my best reasoning behind this is we had to pick a random thumbnail for this live stream, and we ended up picking Travis Etienne to be on that thumbnail. So hell, okay. I think it's a sign. I think it's a sign we will go Travis Etienne 31. Usually I've been taking Olave a ton here in the late third, but clearly just wasn't an option in this draft. Hector says, if Rodgers goes to the Jets, where would you rank him among quarterbacks? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's pull up this quarterback board real quick. So right now, Rodgers is QB 19 going directly after Geno, Russ, Goff, Kyler. I would say if Rodgers goes to the Jets, he jumps Geno easily. I probably have him over Geno now. He jumps Russ easily. He jumps Goff easily. Probably jumps Kyler. I would say he slides into the Tua, Daniel Jones, Trey Lance tier. So I think it'd be a low in QB1. Obviously, the primary issue that you're going to have with someone like an Aaron Rodgers at this point of his career is you're just getting absolutely no rushing upside whatsoever. Whereas with quarterbacks like Daniel Jones and Trey Lance, you have a ton of rushing upside. Okay, so Mari goes 34, Deebo Samuel 35. And we honestly, I don't want to say too much here. Like I said, we're live streaming. But we may want to push up quarterbacks just a bit if we know that this team's going to be on auto draft. A lot of times, whenever I'm on the board, on the clock and we have a team next to us that's auto drafting, I'll try to play around a bit and make it where they almost have a dead team and accumulate too much of a single position if we were already set on that spot. So for instance, say we are going with a build where we selected a ton of wide receivers early. Say we went through the first 5 rounds, we picked 5 wide receivers straight, then we would be heavily incentivized every single time that we were on the board before the team that was auto drafting to make sure that there was a wide receiver at the top of queue. That way wide receivers would continue to go and we could try to create a little mini run later on. Wide receiver is a little more difficult to do it with given the depth of the position, but it's easier to do so at quarterback, tight end, of course, but we'll see. We're just going to be playing around. So Andrews falls all the way to the 4th round here. Very interesting just to see the tight end landscape this year where you're still having Kelsey as that top 5 pick, whereas all these other tight ends are dramatically falling. Okay, so Tony Pollard, 39. Let's swing this around. Fields goes. Think, what do we want here? So Calvin Ridley has been falling in these drafts. Calvin Ridley started as a mid-3rd round pick, now falling to the middle of the 4th. You know what? Specifically because we took Travis Etienne, I actually don't mind the idea of just going ahead and trying to stack up options in this Jacksonville Jaguars passing offense. Christian Watson's been on the opposite end of Calvin Ridley, where Christian Watson actually started as an early 5th round pick, and you've seen Christian Watson moving up to the middle of the 4th, whereas Calvin Ridley, like we said, moved down from the middle of the 3rd to the middle of the 4th. Don't really know exactly who I love with this selection in particular. I mean, I just think that we can use the tie break that if we already made the bet on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense to go ahead and double down here. But interesting to see that this team is not on auto draft anymore. They decided to go ahead and take TJ Hawkinson at pick 44. Can y'all let me know what you think of this TJ Hawkinson value? Because with Hawkinson, I thought that he was going to be a player that we could potentially buy low on this offseason once we had the trade in Minnesota, because historically speaking, tight ends changing teams very rarely produce right away, just given the fact that they have to get incorporated and kind of learn the offensive scheme when it comes to both blocking as well as running routes. So I thought it was going to be a slower start in Minnesota, but it wasn't at all. I mean, he hit the ground running. He was an elite level option essentially the second that he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. He's still incredibly young, drafted in 2019, of course. Let me know what you're thinking of TJ Hawkinson. Do you like this value at 44, or would you go somewhere else? Nick says he probably prefers George Kittle. I mean, sitting here and thinking about it, the issue with Kittle compared to Hawkinson is the passing volume may be capped if you have San Francisco continuously trying to run the ball, and also you have Trey Lance under center. Hawkinson may have less target competition because in San Fran you have, the combo of Debo, Ayuk, and CMC, whereas in Minnesota you literally only have Justin Jefferson. I don't know, my friend. I think it's going to be very difficult for me to pick between the two guys. It will be something we spend pretty much the entire offseason talking about. Nolan says, don't love Hawkinson, but don't like the wide receivers in the area. Prefer Kittle. Champ says, give me Kittle as well. Well, you see, Kittle's falling a decent bit here. So I think it makes a lot of sense for us to just decide, okay, well, we already took ETN. We already took Calvin Ridley. So let's go ahead and let's take Trevor Lawrence and go all in on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. But very rarely are you going to get the opportunity to draft George Kittle here in the middle of the 5th. If we're trying to create unique combinations, I actually think that it's going to be a little more unique to be able to go ahead and take George Kittle here in the middle of the 5th round. Whereas, people in the live chat were telling us that they would have preferred George Kittle over TJ Hawkinson, where you're seeing Hawkinson go about 11 picks earlier. So I think a lot of people would say that the correct pick is Trevor Lawrence. I understand the thought process behind that, but specifically going after unique combinations, we'll go Kittle instead. Cameron says, do you think Jameson Williams' ADP is too high for proving almost nothing? With Jameson Williams, I think from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, I can say that he is overvalued, and I can say that confidently. However, if we are going to be looking at what we have from a best ball perspective, or maybe his skill set actually translates a little bit more, maybe he is quote unquote better for best ball. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and act like Jameson Williams is the worst pick in the world at ADP. Like he's wide receiver 31. Can I sit here and scream that Hollywood Brown, Tyler Lockett, Mike Williams, Pickens, Ayuk are significantly better? I don't know. They're all about the same range. So I'm personally not drafting a lot of Jameson Williams. I don't really know if I've drafted him at all yet, but kind of is what it is. Okay, so Jameson does go here, pick 60. Now, Hollywood goes 61. I'm interested to see this. Okay, Lawrence goes 62. I mean, obviously, we are praying that Trevor Lawrence made it back to us. If Lawrence made it back to us in the middle of the 6th round, we would have done a little dance there for everybody, but it is what it is. Okay, let's move this down. I've noticed this on Underdog with the rookies. There'll always be this little news note here, and then you can't find anything for it. Aaron Jones goes 63. Aaron Jones would have been a running back that we would have taken, given the fact that he restructured his contract. I'd have been happy to get him there at 66. Jahmyr Gibbs goes. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take Javonte Williams. Now, Javonte Williams did not just tear an ACL. Javonte Williams tore his entire knee up. What I'm a little bit worried about with Javonte Williams is we see players that aren't ready for training camp actually fall in ADP as we get closer to the season. So maybe this wouldn't be a player that we would select in Best Ball Mania because maybe we would think that we could get a larger discount on him. But specifically, given this draft contest, I actually like the idea of investing into these players at a significant discount, which I think we are getting Javonte Williams at, given the fact that we need to be optimizing for weeks 15, 16, 17. Like we showed, it's a $10 buy-in, $200,000 for first place. We're looking for the highest ceiling possible in those final 3 weeks. So Javonte Williams is actually probably a minus EV pick here, just considering the fact that he's going to miss the beginning of the season. But at the same time, if we could sneak this team through to the fantasy football playoffs, and then we are one of the few teams there that has Javonte Williams with an incredibly high ceiling, I'm going to be fine with the investment. But full transparency, I'm the same guy that was drafting J.K. Dobbins nonstop in the 6th round this past year and clearly didn't learn the lesson. Okay. Now, Treylon Burks goes 71. Deontay Johnson, 72. Okay, so we have these teams on the end deciding to go a little bit heavy when it comes to wide receivers here. You have the Jefferson team with Jefferson, Metcalf, Pittman, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson. I mean, Deontay was someone that I drafted a ton when he was going about the wide receiver 30 this past season, and I was excited about it, but clearly it did not work out. Clearly it was very, very bad, but it is what it is. You live and you learn. Jordan Addison goes 75. If Addison would have made it back to us, we would have decided to go with him. I like the Ayuk pick as well. Okay. J.K. Dobbins, 77. Fitz goes Cam Akers. Okay, let's sit here and think. I'm not taking Dak. We're going to take someone else who may end up missing time this next season, very similar to Javonte Williams. Alvin Kamara may be looking at a suspension. And yes, with Alvin Kamara, he is going to be a significantly worse option, suspension or not, this upcoming season than he's historically been. That's 100% true. Nobody can deny that. I can't sit here and try to say, oh, we're drafting Alvin Kamara because he's going to be a top 3 running back in fantasy. Everybody knows he's going to be worse. The question is exactly how much worse, because he is guaranteed the contract. He's guaranteed to be on the roster this next season. So if we're going to be able to get him at pick 79 directly after guys like Pacheco, Dobbins, and Akers, and we're looking for the highest ceiling possible, Kamara did end up winning someone Best Ball Mania 1. I don't know. Well, we'll try it out. We'll try it out. Now, Nick coming out with a donation. Thank you, my friend, says, appreciate the content. As always, Mason, will be plenty of these throughout the offseason, as I couldn't have won the puppy one without you this past year. That is awesome, my man. I completely forgot that you won the puppy one. That is so cool. It is much more difficult to win the puppy one than it was to win the big dog. I think puppy one, didn't that pay out $75,000? Big dog I won paid out $100, but at the same time, puppy was a $5 buy-in. The big dog was a $250. So if you're looking at the size of the pool, way bigger of an achievement to win the puppy one compared to the big dog. So congrats again, my friend. That is phenomenal. Okay. So now we have Zay Flowers 87. Let's swing this back around. Okay, so now there are just no wide receivers left. If you're looking at best wide receivers on the board, you have Brandon Cooks and Jacoby Myers. So it looks like we're not taking a wide receiver anytime soon, but it is what it is. I mean, we kind of did this to ourselves. We can go back and look at this draft board and figure out what we could have done differently for the next time. I'll say 9 times out of 10, I've been finding myself taking a running back in round 8 almost anyway. Aaron Rodgers goes pick 88. I wasn't going to be considering Rodgers. Okay, M. Jerky. Goes Tyler Algier. Okay, think here, Mason, think. We may take our 4th running back before our 4th wide receiver. Looking at the tier drop-off, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take James Conner. Very similar to Alvin Kamara, running back they are expecting to be much worse this next season than he was the year prior. At the same time, that is going to be priced in. Whereas we're looking at James Conner as a running back that's going as an RB3, RB4. The man is under contract this next season in Arizona. They're not going to be able to get out of it almost regardless. So, I don't know. We'll take him, close our eyes, really hope that we find some wide receiver value a little later on. I'm more comfortable investing into James Conner at this point with the guaranteed contract in Arizona compared to what we would be looking at with Miles Sanders, who is going to be an unrestricted free agent. But it is what it is. Nick says, I had put up 184 points having the Brady Evans Godwin stack in the final week. Yeah, that is incredible. I assume that almost everybody, and that's how I actually kind of won, not the big dog, but the Bulldog 2, that was actually a smaller field. That was like a $500 buy-in. I think we got $20,000 for first in that one. But since it was a smaller field, I didn't even have that good of a week overall, but I was the only person in the field that had Mike Evans, and Mike Evans dropped like 40 points. So I'm going to say we got lucky. We got lucky, but still. You need a little bit of luck to win a large field tournament like that. Now, the Cognito says, would you be nervous about drafting Kyle Pitts? I think you have to be nervous about drafting Kyle Pitts, but at the same time, it's like, are you going to be nervous about drafting Treylon Burks? They're going neck and neck. You know what I mean? So it's going to be different depending on the price point that you're paying. So it is what it is. Zach Charbonnet, A.J. Dillon, Khalil Herbert all going. This is exactly what we wanted to see. Once we have 4 running backs here, we're just praying to God that people start taking RB. Okay, Brandon Cooks goes pick 100. Okay, I think I know what we're going to do. This is the team that has Mahomes, Burrow. Team goes Jamal. Okay, so what are we doing here? We don't have an available stack, but we just need to lock in some quarterback points here. We are going to go ahead. We're going to take Kirk Cousins. I've been taking Trey Lance a ton in this range, but very rarely are you going to be able to get Cousins pick 103. So we'll take him. Not excited about it. If we're going to be looking at quarterbacks in comparison to Cousins and the price point that we got, I don't hate it. Let me know what you're thinking. Would you have gone elsewhere? We have Darren Waller going directly after. I mean, I just have absolutely no interest in taking a tight end in this range. I think I would rather either wait an additional round or 2 or wait until the very end of the draft to take a tight end. If we would have gone somewhere else, I think we would have either selected Juju Smith-Schuster or Trey Lance. I would have felt a lot more comfortable with this selection, of course, if we would have taken TJ Hawkinson, if we would have taken Justin Jefferson early on in the draft. I mean, it's not like we can even go through and hit the backstop with Adam Thielen. We don't even think Adam Thielen's going to be a Minnesota Viking this next season. It is what it is. Now, Rashad White goes 110. Please get some more running backs off the board for us. Golf for Life says wait up for Osborne, maybe. Yeah, let me pull up the KJ Osborne contract. As I pull this up, of course, if you want to get our next draft, we're going to be doing this all offseason. We did over 700 of these drafts this past year. You can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the live chat in the comment section. Use promo code FLOCK and they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up 200. In my mind, there's literally nothing more fun. Okay, so yeah, KJ Osborne is going to be on the Minnesota Vikings. So I guess we may end up having to go KJ Osborne. Maybe we take a swing on a rookie wide receiver and tell ourselves some crazy story of how the Minnesota Vikings draft Josh Downs in the second round. And obviously we're going down what if land there. Michael Thomas goes. Josh Downs goes, so we don't even have that option. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Trey Lance. Honestly, Lance is someone we almost drafted this past round. We're going to get Lance and George Kittle stacked up. I mean, this is why we went ahead and we drafted Kirk Cousins over Trey Lance, because in my mind, there was a 0% probability that we were going to end up getting Cousins on the way back around, given how the ADP shook out. So if we were trying to create that unique build, really the only option that we had was to take Kirk Cousins first and then roll the dice that we had Trey Lance making it back to us in the next round, which ends up happening. So yeah, we're going to go ahead. We are going to pull the trigger there and pray to God that we can somehow, some way find some wide receiver value, but I don't know. And David Montgomery's been a running back that we've consistently seen falling further and further in these drafts. I don't want to sit here and act like David Montgomery is some phenomenal value, but I mean, you are looking at Montgomery and Miles Sanders in my mind being two very similar running backs. I mean, neither one of these running backs look like elite level options really at any point. They're both free agents. We don't know either situation they're going to. So it is what it is. Brian says, can you do a video on your total earnings / profit from last season if you're comfortable sharing? Yeah, it should be the last video on the channel like a month or two ago. The title should be something like how I won $150,000 this year. Yeah, it was a month ago. Just look at the latest video on the channel. Okay, so we have a run on quarterbacks here. Honestly, probably pretty good for us. I wouldn't mind in a 20-round draft going ahead and taking another quarterback, but it would be at the very, very ends. Yeah, like I'm not... Maybe we shouldn't say this out loud, but spoiler alert for everybody. I'm not going to be the guy drafting Geno Smith here. I have not taken Geno Smith in a single one of these drafts yet, and I don't plan on it anytime soon. Like, what could possibly happen for Geno Smith to see his value increase? I feel like there's really maybe only downside for Geno Smith at this price point. Okay, Elijah Moore goes 124. Zeke 125. Okay, sit here thinking. I don't mind grabbing Joshua Palmer here. I mean, taking Palmer, I feel like this could be a pick where you end up seeing Palmer's ADP rise through the offseason if Keenan Allen does get moved from the Los Angeles Chargers. They decide to cut him. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell goes directly after. Gainwell's been a player that's been skyrocketing up these boards, but clearly we need a wide receiver. We literally only had 3 up until this point through the first 10 rounds, which is laughable. So let's go ahead and let's try to backfill with a bunch of depth. I think Joshua Palmer's a fine option to do it because we know he's going to be an elite level offense. We know he's going to have great quarterback play. And he could possibly be the wide receiver too. We don't know for sure, but it's possible. And we just need to be taking swings. Romeo Doubs goes off the board at 129. Nick says, I like what you said previously about taking swings on Richardson or a rookie like that towards the end with rushing upside as a third quarterback. Yeah, if you ignore positions and just look at my most drafted players so far in these big board drafts, it is Anthony Richardson's Will Levis. Like, you get him in like the final 3 rounds. They have rushing upside. You can easily, like, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but we are planning on it. We are planning on it. Neil says, were you considering Wan'Dale there at all? The issue with Wan'Dale Robinson, I love the player, but whenever we already go ahead and invest into a couple guys that may be missing time, like Javonte Williams, like Alvin Kamara, it's aggressive to continue to stack on those wide receivers or just really any player that's going to be potentially missing the beginning of the season. KJ Osborne goes, I was really hoping we were going to get Osborne on the way back, round 138. Gabe says, wait, too fast. What is the promo code? I don't know if you're joking with me, my friend, but the promo code is FLOCK. You can see it down there at the bottom of the screen. Okay, Elijah Mitchell goes. Okay. Not really considering QB here. I don't think they're bad values, but I just don't think we can afford to go that direction. Hunter in for a 136. Keyshawn Boutte, 137. We're going to make an egregious reach. I don't really care. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Michael Gallup. I mean, if we're going to be looking at Gallup's wide receiver that's guaranteed to be with the Cowboys this next season with his contract. Yes, horrible season this past year, but maybe we can make the excuse that we were just betting off of a torn ACL a little too early and he needed some additional time to rehab. Allen Lazard, you have no idea what team he's going to be on. I don't think Allen Lazard's a talented player. Didn't really draft him at all this past year. I think that at one point of his career, Michael Gallup had talent. It's not a depth chart that's very too hard to overcome to be the wide receiver 2 there. He's getting paid to do it. We need wide receiver depth. We'll go Gallup as our wide receiver 5. Okay. Cameron says, are you worried about Ridley after missing like 2 years? I'm confident in him, but kind of worried it could be a situation like Deshaun Watson. I definitely think so, but at the same time, it all goes down to the price. Because last time we saw Calvin Ridley getting drafted in fantasy football was 2021, and he was a late first, early second round pick in these underdog drafts. So if we are looking at it, I will say it is a risk, but the risk is priced in. Now, Devin Achane, Alexander Madison, please get some more of these players off the board. Okay. I don't know if I've taken Derek Carr in a single one of these drafts yet, but my hand may be forced. Odell Beckham Jr. goes 149. God, this is so gross. Michael Mayer, 150. I think our hand is kind of forced to go wide receiver. I don't think he's good. I don't know why we're making the pick. I do prefer the value of someone like Tyler Higbee here, but the issue that I'm looking at is if we take Tyler Higbee to pair with George Kittle, are we stopping at 2 tight ends? Probably not. So it doesn't really save us the extra roster spot to go through and pick up an additional wide receiver. If I felt comfortable only having Kittle as well as Higbee in a 20-round draft, I think we would go Higbee. But knowing that we're probably going to have to go 3 almost regardless, I don't really want to do it. Alex says, Isaiah Hodgins could have a relatively significant role depending on how the draft goes for the Giants. Yeah, it's in the range of outcomes. I mean, it's not that likely, but it's possible. And we just need some wide receiver depth here. More so trying to find guys like Joshua Palmer, Michael Gallup that we drafted right beforehand, where we almost know that, yeah, they're never going to be the wide receiver 1 on their team, but they're almost locked and loaded into being the wide receiver 2 or 3. With Hodgins, I don't know if he has any talent whatsoever. I wouldn't be surprised that this is someone that we never talk about again. A big thing as well is if you're looking at this free agent wide receiver class, there's nobody. Like, there's nobody at wide receiver. Stroud goes 156. I think in Stroud in a decent amount of these as well. Alex says, could be a decent red zone threat. 5 touchdowns in his final 7 games. Yeah, if Isaiah Hodgins were to repeat what he did this past season, if he were just to repeat, I don't need him getting any better. But if somehow he can just do what he did, I would be ecstatic. I would be over the moon. Wes says, Mason, who do you think will be the surprise quarterback next year? I always feel like we have one that significantly exceeds expectations. I don't know if he'll be good from a fantasy football standpoint, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that I think Lance will... I'm sorry, I don't know if he'll be good from a real life standpoint, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that I think Lance will be good from a fantasy football standpoint. I know that's a cop-out answer, but it is what it is. Okay, this team is 3 RBs. You have Eckler, Dameon Pierce, Dalvin. They don't have to go with another one if they don't want to, but we'll see what they do. 0 tight ends. They go Stafford. We were taking Stafford if he fell. Tyquan Thornton. We don't have any Steelers, do we? Speaking of how ugly this wide receiver free agent class is, I think we're going to go ahead. We're going to take DJ Chark. Chark got like a little bit more in best ball. You're going to be looking at that deep threat. I think that he could potentially find himself a sneaky good landing spot this offseason and a sneaky good contract as well. I believe the contract that he signed back with Detroit essentially locked him in at $8 million per season. If he gets paid in a similar range, goes to a team, I'm comfortable with him being able to get on the field. Comfortable with him possibly having 2 to 3 games where he pops off for a touchdown and a long ball. And that's what we're looking for with the wide receiver room that's absolutely decimated. So, I like it. Ollie says, why draft so early? I don't know about you, Ollie, but I like to have fun. I like to enjoy my life, and I love fantasy football. Like I said, I wasn't even planning on live streaming. I was literally just about to hop in an Underdog draft. I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, might as well. I feel like we're not just wasting time. Let's get into string while we're at it. Okay, Pickett goes 169. John Mechie 170. And yeah, Ali, if you're not familiar with Underdog as well, it's no time commitment at all during the season. So you don't submit your starting lineup. It's automatically done for you at the end of every single week with the highest potential starting lineup. And you draft 20 rounds here. So there is no waiver wire. So, I mean, I did over 700 of these drafts this past offseason. So it'd be different if we were having to draft all these teams and then submit starting lineups during the year. That would be miserable. And there's no way we could do that. But I'll probably just be checking in on this team once or twice, to be honest with you. Okay, MVS goes 172. Zach Ertz 173. Zach Evans. I don't know where he's going to be. Yeah, I don't know where he's going to be. Possibly he finds himself back in Minnesota. If that were to be the case, that'd be phenomenal to pair up with Kirk Cousins. We kind of need that. We need to continue to add wide receiver depth. I really liked our draft. Let's try to figure out where it went wrong because I don't feel that comfortable with it now, but I really liked what we had done through about the first 6 rounds. So going ahead and looking at this, I mean, we went Diggs, Waddle, Etienne, Ridley, Kittle, Javonte, and then where did it go off the rails? I mean, going Kamara at pick 79, if we went back, possibly we can go Jahan Dotson instead. So let's say we switch the Alvin Kamara pick with Jahan Dotson. That would be my favorite wide receiver out of this range, or maybe Gabe Davis, really whoever you wanted. But then instead of having to go ahead and take Joshua Palmer 127, I actually kind of like the Palmer pick. Maybe instead of taking Gallup, we can go Fournette. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just don't feel that comfortable with the team given the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding it. Jeremiah says, I would rather have Dotson over Kamara. Looking at it, I think that could be the thing that we go back and fix. Okay. Shakir goes 180. Wide receiver, I'm not really going to be drafting much of. Once we have, I believe, 8 wide receivers, right? I think we're kind of going to be done here. We need 2 more tight ends, another quarterback, 2 more running backs. I think we're probably done at wide receiver unless we find a value that we really like. Because at this point, I want to be drafting 2 tight ends. I actually really just like drafting 3 QBs, given the fact that we have 20 rounds here. Tank Bigsby goes 182. Bigsby's a running back that has fallen a ton in public perception compared to where he stood a year ago. I mean, people are so excited about him a year ago, at least in Dynasty. Okay, Paris Campbell goes 183. I think we're probably going to, actually, I don't want to say exactly what we're doing here. I think we can go a couple different ways. Okay, so this team does not have a tight end yet. They just took Raheem Mostert, 177. How old is Raheem Mostert? Dear God. Hey, he's going to be 31. Sam Howell goes 185. Do we just take Hayden Hurst here, needing a tight end? Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll take Hayden Hurst. I mean, we need a tight end. Don't really know where he'll be. Don't really know if he's any good, but Roshan Johnson goes 187. That would have been a running back that we were taking in a few rounds. That does suck. I mean, I don't know if Roshan Johnson's going to be any good. All I know is hook 'em horns, and of course I want to root for our guy. And I do really like the idea of just investing into a couple of rookie running backs in this range because those are players that could see their value have a sharp uptick. Maverick says, don't forget about Odell Beckham Jr. My friend, Odell goes way earlier in these drafts than this range. Odell went back and picked 149. Yeah, Odell went right before we took Isaiah Hodgins. So really the player that we took over Odell was Michael Gallup. Cordell Patterson goes, Allen Robinson as well. Honestly, if we're looking at this, would we rather take Allen Robinson there and possibly switch one of the other picks earlier? Like, what's the difference between Allen Robinson and Adam Thielen? I'd probably rather have A-Rob. Levis goes 191. That sucks. We were going to be looking to get Will Levis at 199. I think he has an ADP of about 205. Trey McBride goes. We're going to need another tight end as well. Okay. Switch this around. And if you are a big Brock Purdy fan, I would highly recommend you hop into some of these drafts and start taking Brock Purdy. I'm not saying I am, but if you're a big Brock Purdy fan, I'd recommend you do so. Okay. I see 4 RBs, 2 tight ends. He goes Isaiah Likely 195. I've actually been drafting a little bit Isaiah Likely this offseason. Last offseason, I didn't really take any of them. I know he had the big preseason game and people were excited, but I feel like it's a little more realistic to expect him to take that step forward in year 2 rather than his rookie season. And you're getting him at the same price, if not a little cheaper. E61 says, has Isaiah Pacheco been drafted yet? Oh my gosh, Anthony Richardson just went. Okay, that sucks. My friend, Chuba Hubbard just got drafted. Of course, Isaiah Pacheco was drafted a long time ago. God. We should either just taken Will Levis or Anthony Richardson in the last round. I don't know if it's because we're live streaming. Maybe I'm just sitting here making excuses. Brock Purdy goes as well, so I don't even know if we're going to get another quarterback. Dalton Kincaid goes. Do we go ahead and take Daniel Bellinger, or do we go with the player that I actually kind of like instead? Let's just take a shot on a rookie running back. Let's get Condre Miller here. Like I said, a lot of these running backs are honestly probably going to be flamed out, and we're really not going to be talking about them 3 months from now. I think especially when we get the NFL Combine and have some official numbers to look at for these players. But at the same time, we could end up seeing the exact opposite. We could see a couple running backs in this range actually dramatically increase their value, and those are the exact kind of players that I personally am going to be looking at. Those running backs at the back end of this draft that can either shoot up in value or lose a lot. Just someone that can do something and where maybe we can capture some upside. Okay. Let's move down. Daniel Bellinger goes to 100. I feel like we're a little more likely to go ahead and take a tight ends in round 17 if we didn't take Hayden Hurst at 186. Okay, Juwan Johnson, 202. Ryan Tannehill, 203. Okay. Sit here and think. Okay, should we even consider taking a quarterback? Quarterback we'd take would be Desmond Ridder. No, we'll just send up a prayer that Lance is everything we've dreamed for him to be. Probably not likely, but a man can hope. He can hope. Okay, so do we go tight end or running back? Okay, so Zamir White goes 205. Zamir White's someone that we did not draft at all this past year, at all. Okay. It looks like these rookie RBs don't project at any draft capital. Michael Carter goes 207. This team is yet to take a tight end. So I guess they're just going 3 tight ends the last 3 rounds. They go Noah Fant here. Noah Fant's someone that I love. I've been drafting a ton of Noah Fant. Love the player. I don't really know what the situation is going to be like this next season. We'll go Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren actually had a decent amount of targets this past season out of the backfield. If I remember correctly, I think he had about 45 targets or so. Don't think he's a great running back by any means, but if we're going to be getting him at pick 210, kind of is what it is. So yeah, let me go ahead and let's show off this draft board. I don't think anybody's dying to see the rest of this after we go ahead and are taking players like Jaylen Warren. I think the number one regret that we have in this draft is maybe trying to get a little too cute with it. And instead of grabbing a Will Levis or Anthony Richardson just in the 16th round, instead we take Hayden Hurst. We should have gone Richardson, or honestly, we should have gone Will Levis, 186. Then just waited and had Daniel Bellinger make it back to us to pick 199. That's the biggest mistake. Here we're going to go with one more tight end, and then we're going to have that final roster spot. Don't exactly know where we're going. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Truly do appreciate y'all. I'll hop in another one of these drafts later this week on the live stream. Until then, you'll probably see me drafting in the public lobby. thank you again. I really appreciate you. Really hope we get to see you with the live stream. Maybe on Saturday. Saturday could be good.